Okay, I want to go over something today, which is also a pretty simple tool. And then I'm going to, I want to demo it a little bit. And then I'll also give you a video of somebody who goes pretty in depth with it. It's going to be basically the exact same thing I cover, except he's just going to do a more complex object. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let's take this. Hang on. And before I do anything with it, I'm going to go right here. Let's go over here. Hang on. And I'm going to, oh, here it is. Convert to smart object. Okay. Okay. So you guys can see this little icon it put on my thumbnail. Do you see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's what we're going to do. This comes in handy. I'm going to take this. I'm going to reduce it so I can see through it. And I'm going to go to my transform, distort. I'm going to put this in some way, shape, or form sort of on the car, following the perspective a little bit. And then what I'm going to do here, actually, I'm going to put it right there. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go up here to transform, warp, and I can sort of start to bend this thing so it follows the form a little better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In the video I'm going to give you, he does an airplane. And I used to do an airplane with this, but I like it better doing two different things. And then let's say this, I don't know, probably wrap more like that. And I'm going to say, okay. Now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to make a layer mask. This isn't a good brush, hang on, for this. I'm going to get rid of all just the big areas that are easy first. Yeah, here. Now, right there where I just screwed this up, see that right there?
Uh-huh.
This is why I'm doing this with a layer mask, because I could get it really perfect if I want, because obviously I can come back in here and add that back in. You know, I could use other tools in here, but usually I just do it this way. Like I would have came in here actually with my, when I was doing my texture mapping, I probably would have bowed this little section out as it goes over the fender. Does that make sense?
Could you go over texture mapping one more time?
Yeah, give me a sec. Let me get this part done and then I'll go back.
Okay, thank you.
And then plus you can just have me go over whatever you want me to go over. Is that fine, Irene?
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah. I felt like crap today, by the way. By the way, if anybody's thinking about going out to Cabazon or Palm Springs, don't do it.
Why?
Because Caltrans and their infinite wisdom, I absolutely despise Caltrans. We were out there yesterday looking at property. And we're coming back. What we like about it is it's an easy day trip and all that. And Caltrans is doing some project that they're calling a tune-up or something on the road. So they put up all that crazy Caltrans stuff. And I made the mistake. I got really frustrated in the traffic. So I go, I'm going to try and get off here at Cabazon and go down the road. To go from the outlet malls, about a block or two down to the freeway, took about an hour and a half.
Oh my gosh.
It's an absolute disaster. Like you have never seen anything like this. And my girlfriend got all mad at me. Not a good day. All right, so there's that part. You have to bear with me here. It takes a few minutes for me to do this. And yeah, I could probably go in here and just clipping mask it, or not clipping mask it. What do you call it? Use my pen tool and stuff, but this is fine. Let me get rid of that little piece right there too. And this, and this. And a little bit of that. I'm gonna see if I can, let me try something here in a minute. So I'll do it kind of sloppy so I can go a little faster. Also, sometimes when we go to the second part of this, you might find out some of the mask, you didn't quite mask it right. So it's another reason I like using a layer mask, is I can just go back in and fix it. Oops, it's a little too much. And then I'll just do the windshield. I'm going to knock down the opacity a little more. I want to see the windshield a little better. Going up here. I want to try something here. Hang on. I don't know if this will work. There we go. So I filled it, I didn't erase it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm on a layer mask. So this should be a little faster, then I'm gonna do it this way. And again, you know, if the edge isn't completely perfect, I can just come back in with my brush tool and clean it up. Now, Also, you're seeing I'm using a white car, right? Why is that?
Maybe so you can pick
Easy
up,
base.
What's that?
so you can pick up all the colors.
Yeah, so I don't have to worry about trying to make the color work on it.
What other applications would you have for this? This tool, I guess.
I'll show you. Like, let me go through it, and then it'll make a lot more sense.
Okay.
And then I can talk a little more about other things. You can use this thing for a ton of stuff, but. Okay. So let's go back to 100%. Oh, it's on color. That's weird. And then I would find an overlay that works. That one's not bad. And I get this, yeah?
Mhm.
Okay, so now if I want to give this, hang on. If I want to give this another paint job, what I would do is okay, so now what I would do is I want to alter this paint job, correct?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna double click the little icon, and there's where the original pattern lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna open up this ugly pattern, and I'm gonna take it, drag it in here. And I'm going to say okay, and I'm going to say save. And I go over here now, and it's reapplied my new paint job and kept all the information and wrapped it. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Now, I might have to go in here like this one and go, I need something that's a little more vibrant. That feels a little too dull. And then I also look and go, there's certain places where it needs to change a little bit. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Yes, maybe it's just here. Maybe. Yeah, I just doubled them and it got a little more vibrant. Okay, so if I go back over here and I go, actually, let's do this. I don't want to have this doubled when I do this. Now, if I come back over here and I go, oops, it's the wrong one. I'm going to double click my little smart icon. It's a smart object, by the way, you guys. I'll put it there. Maybe I'll do this.
Is that why it's changing automatically? Is because it's a smart object?
Yes.
Okay.
And see, now I put the pattern here. See it?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the one that I'm going to send you to, the guy does a more complex version of this, but it's basically the same thing. He makes a pattern, and I've done this too, and it works really well. He makes a pattern with like numbers or something on it, or letters or something. And the reason he does that is so he can he can orient that, like he wraps it on there as like a test onto his vehicle, right? And then he can see where the orientation and how it's running. So like if I wanted to put this someplace where it made sense, I can go, oh, well, it's going to orient this way. Or in his case, he does a plane, so he mirrors it onto the other wings, and he knows like, oh, all the A letters have to face this way into the fuselage. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you can make a test pattern that you just keep that gives you orientation, and that'll help you to orient it if you're adding other elements. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. So now you were asking me about what, Irene?
Texture mapping.
Okay. It's kind of texture mapping manually, right? Because texture mapping is usually a 3D thing. But what I'm doing here, so let's just do it again. I won't erase all of it and all that again. Let's take this. Let's turn it off for a minute. And let's pull our pattern back in here. The first step of this is that I want to make sure that this thing feels like it's following the form of the car, right?
Right.
So the first step to me is I just start with a perspective. So transform, and I go to distort. Oh, lower it down so I can see. And I just follow this first. And I'm just following the roof line of the car, basically. And then the perspective down here. Like this feels like it should be over here because there's the center point is the middle of that medallion, right?
Right.
Okay, so then I go, let's say, and then I go, this is too, oh, no, that's actually fine. Because I'm going to lose all this in the window anyway. And I go, let's say that I go, that looks pretty good. I'm going to go back up here now under edit, transform, and go to warp. And there's a grid on here. If up here, you see right here, it shows, you can show the grid. I don't do it anymore because I just don't need to. Grid default, 3x3. So there you can get your wire mesh points if you want. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and you know, it might, and then, you know, you can add them and stuff like that. I don't really want it. I don't want to see them. So I'm going to go, I don't want that either. I'm going to start going, how do I get this to follow the form of the car? Hang on. And I'm going to take this one first and sort of bend it over the form of the car. Then it's coming down here. This is going to get lost, so it doesn't really matter as much. Then if I really want to get tricky with it, I could start to bend this. So it's starting to deform across the front of this. And I'd have to get another one in here and pull it up right there a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh.
A little more like that. And then here too, I screwed myself up here. Hang on. Let's see if I can just do this. Yeah. Like that's going to deform over here a little bit. Like that probably. And I would just start really looking at how this bubbles out over this form. Like even here, I might bubble that a little more. And then once I get it where I like it, now it's following the form of the car a little better. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a million ways you could do this. I mean, if you were doing an environment and you had, you know, it could be the paint job. It could be the, it could be a special, I don't know, if you were doing a scene inside of a castle and there's a big tapestry on the wall with a pattern on it. You might want to try 4 or 5 different things. If I was doing this kind of thing, what's nice about it is once I got the pattern laid out on my, let's say this is my own design, and I want to show 15 different pattern ideas, I'd go into Illustrator, I'd make all the patterns. That would take me 15 minutes. Then I jump back over here and I've already got one, and I just go, boom, generate a JPEG, boom, generate, you know, boom, 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 just keep generating them and then hand those off for discussion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, you could even do it with costume design. If you have a character, you could wrap the pattern and everything around it. That way you could just burn through a whole bunch of designs without doing more paintings. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you could even have your overlayers on top of that with all your shadow values and all that kind of stuff. So that doesn't change either. And whatever you do to that form, it just is going to keep reapplying. Yeah. I mean, there's a million reasons to use it. Huh?
I said that makes sense.
I think it's a really nice time saver. Especially for, I mean, obviously for design. Or if I was doing in this case, a wrap for a car, then I could just knock these things out. Like this one right here, see this stripe? Well, that's fine because it goes across here. But when I look at it, I go, I might tweak that a little bit. You know what I mean? Like these are following this form, which is fine. This is following this form, which is fine. But this one going this way, I don't know. I might change the orientation of that, or I probably would take this stripe and pull it a little more severely over the roof so there's more of a hard curve on it. So it was kind of going up and over. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, questions? No questions? The main thing, the thing about this is like, and I don't know if this is just my brain, because I'll look at these things and go, oh, it's when I first look at it, learned it or whatever, I'm like, that's complicated, I don't want to deal with it. It's not. All you do is before you start the project, you right click that thing and you just convert it to a smart object. And then when you want to adjust it, you click the little icon and it goes into that secret little window where it's kept, and whatever you do to that's going to apply the geometry and everything to whatever it is. So really all it is just converting it to a smart object. And if you ever notice, when you drag something from the desktop into your Photoshop, for some reason it turns it into a smart object anyway. I don't know why. It's actually kind of annoying because sometimes I don't want a smart object. And you can import things from Illustrator, because I just did this. You can import things from Illustrator and when you cut and paste them into Photoshop, it'll ask you, do you want this to be a smart object? Now what happens then is when I double click it, it goes back to Illustrator. I can adjust the original Illustrator file, the pattern, and it updates it in Photoshop. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the smart object idea goes across platform. I've never used it with InDesign, but there might be some way you can use it in InDesign too. Actually, probably could. I've just never done it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you're doing, I've done this, where I might have a Photoshop element in a fairly complex image that I'm not really sure of, and I might smart object it, so I don't have to keep going in and repainting it. I can just go back to that original file and do whatever manipulation I'm going to do there, and it just updates in my file. You know what I mean? So you'll kind of identify places where you might want to use a smart object. Okay? Yeah?
Yeah.
And the other good thing is if I come back in here and I go like this little, I would probably cut this off right there or something. So if I want, you know, obviously I have a layer mask now, so I can add things, take things out, back and forth. And it just speeds everything up. And trust me, I used to do this crap by hand because I didn't know this. It would have saved me hours. Jordan.
Yes.
What were you going to say?
Oh no, I'm just honestly, I'm just kind of thinking how this could. I mean, I know it's useful, but how I can use it for my projects.
I would use it. One of the ways I would use it. Let's simple way you could use it. You have ideas for specialty materials. Like right here, I'm thinking it might be a slatted wood idea. Here's that. And I'm also thinking maybe it's a plaster idea, a hand plastered look. That here's my 5 different ideas for that little section. You know, maybe it's part of a wall and part of the treatment on the front of the property or whatever it is, right? You just go, bink, here's that material, bink, here's that material, bink, here's that material, throw them all in your presentation as a call out.
It's good for like textures and patterns, huh?
I think it's good for all sorts of things, but is right off the top of my head, that's one I would use it for. You know, because then I could just generate them really fast. And again, if I'm going to make those you're probably using different programs, obviously, but if I was doing it, I would go, oh, I'm going to make all those patterns in Illustrator and just pop them on there. You know, make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Or, you know, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways I could do it. I might even have that probably wouldn't work. I mean, there's a bunch of places. It's basically anywhere where I'm going to want to go. I want to give 15 ideas, 15 versions of this idea, right? Now here it could be graphics, you know, a paint job. And on yours, it could be a paint job also, by the way. It could be, that's not as hard to change depending on how you do it. To me, it's just anything that's like, you put quite a bit of work into it. You don't want to have to keep doing that work over and over again. It's basically how I would use it, right?
Yeah, I mean, as it is now, I don't really have questions. I kind of want to mess around with it to see if I don't have any questions.
That's all I want you guys to do. This one I am going to give you, just put it as an exercise though, because I really want to make sure you guys know how to do this. It's important.
Sure.
And again, right after we're done, I'll upload a video of this guy doing a more complex version of it. What I just did here is the basis of what he does. The difference with him is he's it's a plane, so he has to do the fuselage and the two wings. And the reason I like to show that is because, oh, well, how do I connect these things? And he basically just soft edges. He sort of erases out on the layer mask where the wing meets the fuselage. So, you know, and then he sort of shades a little bit and all that. And then also he flips it. So he talks a lot about how he orients his patterns in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And like, if I was doing like the thing he's doing, or, you know, if I was doing something that was, I don't know, for a movie or something, and it was like spaceships or whatever, I'd probably do a bunch of passes on, okay, here's them looking beat up and worn. Here's them looking shiny and new. Here's them with a different paint job and worn. Here's one with a shiny new paint job. Here's 3 different paint jobs I was thinking of. Like, I would just keep riffing until I ran out of ideas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's going to be so easy to do, you know, and I could just go find a rust pattern. I can go find a rust texture. I've done this before. Let's try that. Hang on.
That's cool because I'm using Rust in one of my for my project. So
oh yeah,
we'll see how it's gonna work out.
Hang on, I'll get a big Rust thing. I think for materials it'd be a really useful tool. I haven't wrapped. Okay, here we go. Hang on. This might be, this is kind of a weird rust. Let's do this one. So let's go back to this. I don't want to double here. Let's double click our smart icon. And I didn't save it, so it didn't update. Hang on. Got to save it. And see, now wrap that on there. But I need to find a different overlay. And I wouldn't do it partially. I'd probably wrap the whole car in this, obviously. And again, I just doubled it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
By the way, I will put up, hang on. Because this file's high res and this Rust file I just used is high res. Patterns I won't put up. I'll put up the 2 files I used on this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
And then, you know, because when you go online, sometimes you can find like high res stuff and sometimes you can't. And you don't have to do high res on this. I don't care. And I don't care what you wrap, really. Like the beginning of the video that I'm going to send you, he does a barrel where he just to show you the basic idea. I just showed you all that. You might want to skip past that if you want. And there's 2 parts to it. He takes it pretty finished out. It's basically the same thing I just did, except that it's a little more complicated. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions, you guys?
I just had a quick question. Not so much for this, but I was hoping on Wednesday. So I'm working on the interior, and maybe Wednesday after class, like me and you could spend like 10 minutes just talking about it. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. Just remind me at the beginning of class.
I'm sorry.
Remind me at the beginning of class.
Oh yeah, for sure,
Okay.
sure.
But yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Because we'll probably, I'll have to see what I'm doing on Wednesday, but for class, I'm not sure yet. Okay, so everybody knows what they're doing here. It's the only thing I want you to do today. Yeah?
Yeah.
Irene?
Yeah, I have a question that's not related to this at all, so
Okay.
I'll ask after.
You use this now. What is it?
Oh, I was just wondering, when you're painting, why do you like put, you said that you put like a orange base down and then you said that you put like a purple glaze on top. Is there a reason why you do that specifically?
Nah, it's just for the hell of it.
Okay, just wondering.
I do it. Okay, I do the purple or the orange is because it's a couple of things. I want to kill the white of the board, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it also gives me something to sort of gauge my colors against right off the bat, not just white. Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing is I like some of that warmth popping through.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can leave it a little lighter in certain areas or even leave it totally exposed in certain areas. And it'll just do some really nice, here, I'll show you real quick. I'll show you somebody who actually uses it more stylistically, but she also uses it sort of the same way I do. And sometimes people don't use orange. Sometimes they might use, it just depends on what you're painting. I tend to use orange just for everything. I used to use burnt sienna because it's a little bit of a, more of an earth tone, but it still has a little warmth popping through. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So here, you see on this wall up here, these little warm hits.
Mm-hmm.
That's the underpainting showing through.
Oh, I see.
Okay, and it's like sometimes it's really weird. You'll kind of go, and there's even some showing through in the statue here and there. See it?
Yeah.
And it sounds weird, I know at first, but it's like that little bit of warmth. Sometimes I don't even have to explain it. Like in the sky, I'll leave a little bit of it poking through here and there. And in that case, it's like those 2 things are complements, the blue, the sky, and the orange. But what it does is it vibrates a little bit and then it gives it a little bit of depth. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah.
Or if I have a lot of grass and I leave a little of that popping, like here, look at this one. It's got some of the orange hits showing through here. See it back here?
Yeah, that's nice.
So that little bit of warmth is like a relief for the eye. Like, so if I have a big grassy area like she does here, see those little hits of warmth? It's just a little bit of relief from all that green, right?
Okay, yeah.
And you can, where the hell did it go? There's one other one here, hang on. Look at, here, she's leaving some of it showing down in the street down there.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of it here in the grass over here. You know, right here, some little bit of warm reflected light in that, with that next to the statue. It's all over on, so she uses it more of like a stylistic thing. I use it more sort of a natural thing, I guess. So it's 2 things. It's killing the white. It's automatically unifying all the values in a weird way. Anywhere that I don't cover with paint, I'm going to get a little pop of warmth as opposed to a pop of white, which sometimes just feels unfinished.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then the purple thing, it's not always purple, but purple's a good universal one. I put the entire wash over that underpainting, and the underpainting is just where I blocked out the big areas. Like if it was my face, I'd probably just do a big mid-value skin tone, and that's it, right? Because I have a drawing underneath it, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And then I block out all the main areas, right? My shirt, these letters, this, and I'm not painting anything. I'm just blocking them out because there's a full value drawing underneath it. Then when that dries, I cover the whole thing with a purple wash, which is watercolor. Watercolor won't stick to the purple. And then what I do is I come in and I pick out all the lights and all that stuff. And what that does is everywhere I have a shadow or anything like that, it cools it off and pushes it into shadow a little bit.
Oh, I see.
And so I might even get rid of a lot of that, but a lot of the places where I'm using it, it just sits there. It looks like I mixed the exact perfect darker, cooler flesh tone when I really didn't. It did it for me.
Mm-hmm. No, I get it. Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll just keep layering color. So it's just glazing. It's just glazing, right?
Okay.
Stained glass, one color on top of another affects the color underneath. And I can use that to my advantage to create very complex shapes and forms.
Okay, cool.
That make
Thank
sense?
you.
I'm going to do a video on it for my Friday class. When I get it done, I'll show it to you.
Yeah, please.
Okay. And it's just, that's a place where if you want to know that stuff, you really got to know your materials and you really got to understand paint handling. And then you got to understand traditional painting, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of these techniques we're doing here digitally, that's where they came from. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if you even, if you go, whether it's my work or somebody else's work, if you go look at it, when you start knowing these things, you start going, oh, that's just glazing. Oh, that's just like oil painting when you build up to the lights and you get fatter paint. Oh, that's just, and you know how it all works. The more informed your work is, the stronger it's going to be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's why I think it's really dangerous what's happening right now. And it's probably always happened on some level, but I think it's happening worse now, which is people looking at all this, especially, I don't know why, especially with the concept stuff. They're looking at all this concept stuff and they're going, oh, I want to paint like that. And they start copying it. And it's like, you don't understand how it works. You're just copying it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if I ask you to go paint something similar or whatever to that, you're not going to know how to do it because you're not going to know how to interpret it for your project. You're just going to go, I just know how to copy that. I don't know why it works, so it's never going to be that good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want a doctor who learned how to do surgery on YouTube. Right?
Right.
But so why is that okay with my field? Which it kind of pisses me off. You know what I mean?
I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of like back in the day when people would, I'm not saying that this is right or wrong, but when people would copy master studies, like, people do now,
No,
it's like,
it's not like that at all.
no, well, what I'm trying to say is that people are looking at who they think are masters and they're trying to imitate them, but it just ends up being copies of work, which, I don't know. For me, it's like, masters are on a different level, don't get me wrong, but
no, the difference with what you just said, I have no problem with master copies. I had to do them when I was in college too. It's not master copying. It's just copying. Okay. It's fan art. It's different. Now, if you're looking at I don't know, a Da Vinci or a NC Wyeth, because I had to do NC Wyeth when I was in college, and you're tearing apart the painting, it was a really good exercise in going, how does he do this? How does he build this? And I figured it, he deconstructed it and I learned a lot from it. And then I never wanted to do it again. Okay. Because I'm like, that's not mine. No matter how good I copied that painting, it's not mine. You know what I mean?
right.
And I think the difference right now is people go, hey, it looks just like that. I'm satisfied. I'm done. It looks just like.
Oh, I see.
Whoever.
They're not taking their skills and putting it to their own.
Yeah, you're not using it as a form of study. And then also when you're doing things like studying from plaster casts and things, you usually did that with a master apprentice system. And the master's going, here's why you're doing that. Here's why that doesn't work. Like you're missing all the core shadows on the curved parts. and you got to go a little deeper on this, and you actually need to go a little lighter, even though I know that value is darker. Here's why you go darker, because optically it's going to do. So you have somebody there using that to teach you a whole bunch of stuff, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's why, to me, when people go 10,000 hours or whatever, I go, that's great. But 10,000 hours of lousy methodology is just going to make you 10,000 hours better at lousy methodology. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So it's knowledge, and then your 10,000 hours, methodology, and then your 10,000 hours, like putting that into service to something that's very workable in the end, right?
Right.
And too many people go, oh, I want to be like so-and-so. It's like, you don't want to be like so-and-so. You want to be better than so-and-so. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to be 100 times better than so-and-so. You know, if you shoot for Saturn and you land on Mars, that's not too bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you guys. So I'm going to make this an assignment because I want this actually done. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm going to put everything up right now. Just give me a minute. And I'll put this video up, but that takes me a little bit longer. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. And Wednesday we'll take a look at them, and then we'll move on.
Hey, Mike, did you happen to get my email?
What was it? I forgot about. No, tell me again. I know
Office
I did.
hours meeting?
Oh yeah. I think I have one. Hang on. Hey, everybody else, you can take off. I'll put everything up. I'm just going to talk to Samantha about this thing here. Okay, you guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
And the stuff I looked at looked pretty good. The
Cool. Thanks.
whatever you call it, the gradient map.
Wait, to